Good morning, Janice.
Good morning, Anthony.
Today we're going to describe some problems when selling probate real estate. And in our examples, we're going to talk about septics, brokers, and co-op listing prices. We're just going to share 3 recent problems we've had selling probate real estate. So it's a bad septic tank, firing a bad broker. I guess bad is subjective, but a broker who didn't fit, and co-op listing prices.
Yes.
And I'll try to include some key takeaways from each of these situations for anyone who's trying to be an executor or thinking, or maybe facing a probate, so they know sort of, okay, these are horrible stories. So what do I learn from that?
Right. How do I do this? Yes.
Very good. So the first one, septic tank problems in probate. So this is kind of a real estate issue, but any leak or other problem with a septic tank is just a huge problem. You have environmental violations. You have special inspectors for that because you don't want heating oil leaking, or septic waste leaking into the groundwater or ground soil, right?
Yeah, you don't want any of it leaking, but not.
Yeah, very good. So in our case, yes, we were trying to sell a decedent's house, and unfortunately, a problem appeared during the inspection of the septic. Thankfully, it was not a full-blown leak. We didn't have sewage or waste leaking everywhere, but there was a problem. So it required our whole team, me as the executor, the attorney, the real estate attorney, the broker, to work together as a cohesive unit to make sure that we resolved this quickly. And as Janice, as we've talked about this many times, selling real estate in probate quickly is key, because
Correct.
You're bleeding money the whole time you're not selling. And you have very impatient heirs waiting. And on top of that, once we finish this, we have to deal with the IRS. So it's just going to compound. We need to get this done.
Absolutely.
So what are the key takeaways from hearing about potential things like septic leaks during selling a probate property? I mean, number one, like I just said, you need a really, really good team who understands probate and the need for speed and the risks to the executor. Don't just hire your cousin, the broker, or leave it to your unemployed nephew to be the executor. These are the kinds of tough situations that'll pop up and need competent folks dealing with them.
Absolutely. And by team, you have to have good communication. Yeah. How many different emails and phone calls went through with that? I mean, we're still getting them on a daily basis. You have to be able to communicate well and communicate quickly. 100%. Together. Yeah.
Also, a takeaway on the septic issue, just another example of why you might want to have a local executor. You need boots on the ground for a situation like this. You need someone who understands local issues, local customs. Like this kind of stuff might be really foreign to somebody who's not from the United States or from just completely different part of the country.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, next, real estate problem in probate. Let's talk about how to fire a real estate agent. Never pleasant. Nobody wants to go through this situation, but being an executor is not for somebody who's into conflict avoidance. So,
right.
It's never easy, but it's actually really important, especially during probate, because as we talked about, speed and risk to the executor are huge issues when you're doing this.
Big, yes.
And if you have a bad broker, or let's call him a broker who's not a good fit, you might have a property that's taking way too long to sell, and that's just going to make your heirs angry, and it's going to put your executor, or you, if you are the executor, at personal risk for the loss in value of the property.
Right. And you're still paying for everything as it's just sitting there. We've talked about that. It's like you have to pay it. You can't let the bills, you can't get the electric. You have to keep paying it, even though no one's there.
Tick, tick. Every month,
everything.
A new set of bills either get paid or accumulate and add on to the pile that you haven't sold.
That's right. So there's no income, but you're putting out. Yep.
I mean, it's not just timing. It's also, a real estate agent who's not a good fit might make poor pricing decisions on your behalf, which can lead to your listing just sitting there. Your agent might be not so great at communications, which will just slow everything down.
Which we just talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a problem. You've got to communicate, and you have to do it quickly.
Or might be a poor evaluator of potential buyers. You don't want to waste time on buyers who cannot close, who promise the sky, but when they get to the co-op board, or they can't close, or the bank won't approve them. You don't want to deal with that.
Right.
So, what are the key takeaways on when it comes to having to fire a real estate broker during probate real estate? Number one, if you can go back in time, choose your broker very carefully. make sure he or she understands probate's unique risks and priorities, which are different from other situations. Make sure you hire an executor who has a trusted network of reliable agents so that, number one, the executor and the broker will work well together, and they're all experienced in these types of scenarios.
Yeah.
And then even
it's
if
nice
you
when
can't,
they have a history together. Yeah.
If you're in a specific building or neighborhood where your executor doesn't have a specific agent, a savvy or competent executor will know to sign a very limited listing agreement so you can get out. Or what do they call it in the business world, in Shark Tank? Like fail fast if you have to.
Yeah.
All right, we'll try this guy, but if he doesn't work, we're out and on to the next one as quickly as possible. Minimize our losses on this, yeah?
Yes, yep.
Okay, so the last probate real estate issue we're going to talk about is co-op pricing strategies. This is kind of a New York-centric thing. I know there are not too many co-ops elsewhere, so for our New York listeners and readers. So we've talked a lot in the past about why co-ops are such a pain for probate. And yeah, Janice, let's make sure we throw in that link in there from that prior episode.
Yeah.
But pricing is one of those many reasons. So in probate, like we talked about just now, you want to price aggressively or low, essentially, to make sure that you sell quickly. You don't want to have the neighboring unit sell faster than yours because you would refuse to go down $10,000. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then on the flip side of that coin, the balancing act is you can't go too low because you have a duty, you have an executorial duty to get the best possible value for your heirs. It's a balancing act.
Yes.
So on top of this balancing act, you have the added complexity of you have to satisfy the co-op. The co-op has the right to reject deals that they don't think are preserving the value of the building as a whole. So if you price too aggressively and get an offer quickly, you might be in a situation where, okay, cool, we got an offer, but then when you take the months of getting into contract and the buyer getting his mortgage lined up, but then when he gets to the board, no thanks, they reject it, and all that time was wasted. Yeah.
Yep, we've seen this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's kind of what you're stuck with co-op listings. You might have a listing price that's too high for the market, but what the co-op will be happy with, and it just sits out there for months. Alternatively, you can price it low, which kind of might meet the market and get buyers, but the board will not approve anyone, or it'll be you run a high risk that the board will just reject it, and all that time is wasted. So, what's the key takeaway from this? Basically, complaining about co-ops in New York. I think the only solution here is to have a savvy executor who's good at communications and can set realistic expectations for the heirs, and to just kind of hammer them, repeat, like this is how it is. This is co-ops are hard to deal with.
Yep.
Because there's no good answer. It's just making sure that the heirs know the answer as much as possible and as far in advance as possible. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And this is another reason why if you're not in the particular area where you're going to be an executor, like I wouldn't have come in from, another state into New York not knowing about co-ops. So that's going to put you at a huge disadvantage. So that's a big deal when choosing your executor. So, sure. To learn more about how probate works, check out Anthony's book, available on Amazon.
Very good.
And then you can see some of these nuances. We'll put those links in there that you were talking about, because we've talked about that before.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope these case studies or anecdotes, as it were helpful. Thank you, Janice, as always, and we will talk soon next time.
Talk soon.
Bye now.